start off. Our topic today is ways to grieve and ways to remember. So I'm going to first start off. Angie, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. I am Angie Chelton. I am in my final year of clinical mental health counseling master's program. I'm an associate counselor with Everlasting Wellness in Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania. I'm perinatal mental health certified. I'm a certified grief professional and a perinatal bereavement specialist. But most importantly, I'm a bereaved parent myself. In 2004, I lost my first baby, Callan, at 8 weeks of pregnancy. And a year later, in 2005, I lost my son, Anderl, at 22 weeks. So I've had a long history with the bereavement community and have actually begun to make that my career and the focus of what I do on a daily basis.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And it's been such an honor to be able to do these videos with you so far this year and moving forward. So in talking about loss, there's all different parts of loss that I think what's hard is that we have this assumption, maybe going into it, that unless our loss occurred in a particular trimester, at a particular time, that warrants a different grief, a different remembrance, a different acknowledgement. But what share and what we're trying to offer and trying to make known is that none of that matters, right? Your loss is a loss, and it's your loss, and it's personal to you, and the effects of it are just as big. So I want to talk about an early loss that not necessarily would take you to the hospital. Somewhere early on when your doctor might tell you, okay, it looks like you're going to miscarry. You're just going to want to stay home. Let us know if you have any complications. What can you do as a mother going through that just horrific time, not getting support from the hospital? And what would be kind of the first steps in preparing for that?
Yeah, those early losses are really hard because, like you said, sometimes we think, it's so early, is this what I'm feeling? Is this okay? Or, we compare our loss and say, well, it's not as bad as if it was later. But really, what causes the pain from grief is the attachment that we have to the other person. And so we can begin experiencing attachment very early in our pregnancies. Sometimes even before you become pregnant, you begin to feel an attachment for the child that you are expecting and the child that will be. So when you learn from your OB or from your midwife that your baby isn't growing, your HCG numbers are not rising the way that we would expect in a healthy pregnancy, that can be devastating. And that is a real loss, and we feel it. And so when we're sent home, there's a couple of different things that are happening at the same time. On one hand, we have this emotional journey that begins to happen where we are now anticipating this loss, and we have this anticipatory grief, and we have this sorrow, and we have fear, because if it's the first time we've ever lost a baby, we have no idea what to expect. And depending on the gestational age, we just don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we're going to see when we have this baby. So there's fear that comes into it as well. We might not know what a complication would even look like when it comes to a miscarriage. So there are some questions that maybe we have for our providers that we want to, ask. And on the other hand, we have this physical journey that's happening. So we have the emotions of grief and fear. And on the other hand, we have the actual physical things that are happening to us. And so it's a great question of, what do you do? And so the answers are twofold, just like the experience is twofold. Emotionally, we need to acknowledge that this is a loss and that it is a big deal, and that's okay. It's normal for a person who is losing a child to feel grief. It's normal for a person facing a brand new situation that they have never been through before that has to do with their health. It's normal for that person to feel fear. You are allowed to feel what you feel, and do not judge your emotions. Don't compare what's happening to you to anybody else. You are on your journey, losing your child. So that's the emotional side of it, is accepting that this is happening and I have a right to feel the way that I feel. The other side of it is the physical side, that you are going to have a child. The experience of miscarrying a child, a lot of times people say it's just like a period. That is not so for people who are experiencing their losses later in their early trimester, in their first trimester. There is cramping that happens. We think of contractions during a full-term labor. You have contractions as your uterus contracts and cramps to deliver your child. You will, depending on your gestational age, there may be products of conception. There may be a baby that is delivered, a placenta that is delivered. And so there may be something for you to handle. Sometimes, depending on the gestational age, there isn't anything that we can visibly discern in that process. But there could be something, a baby that is born at home. You can collect your baby and you can keep your baby's body. And when you have your baby, Cher has partnered with the Charles F. Snyder Funeral Home in Lancaster, and you can actually collect your baby and bring your baby's body to the funeral home, and your baby can be included in the next Cher burial. And just because you don't have your baby in a hospital does not mean that you can't be a part of the Cher burial. So that is very important for some families, to collect their child's body and to have their child's body put to rest in a dignified way. Cher offers that option. When there is not a discernible body during the process of the miscarriage, you can still be a part of a Cher burial, because the Snyder Funeral Home allows families in the community to bring mementos, small mementos that could fit into the small urn size that is buried during one of our funerals. And you can bring the memento. You could bring something like a copy of an ultrasound picture. You could bring a duplicate of a pregnancy test if you have one of those. You could bring a picture of mom and dad. If your family has some sort of special activity that you are particularly fond of that you had hoped to share with this child, you can bring a small symbol of that. And that can be buried in the Cher burial, and you can then have a place to come and remember your child. So Cher and Charles Snyder makes a place for all families who experience a loss at any gestational age. If you need more information about the specifics of how to collect a baby's body at home, please contact Cher. I will be happy to reach out to anyone who has those questions and will offer personal guidance.
No, thank you. Yes, and just to mention, all of that is free. We don't ask for a penny. We raise all of our money so that we can be able to do that with them. And the funeral home does all of that at their own expense. They don't, it's just, this is coming from people's hearts who want to help and give you a place. So, so there is no expectation on that part. And it's just a beautiful way that no matter what, we're going to be able to remember it. Now, if you are in the hospital, we do have hospitals that we work with that will come in and offer that. That's what happened with me and my daughter. Somebody came in and told me about Cher and offered to take her remains and include them in the burial. But so you may have experienced that, or you might be within those two hospitals that offer that. But also, again, if you're not, you're outside of those hospitals that were offering that too. Again, the funeral home will still allow you to be a part of it. There is no certain hospital that needs to be involved with that. So that's something that that they're going to be offering to anybody. So just in the later time, that's something that you can always think about. And even if you want to have a private burial, again, we just recommend that you go with them, just because this is something so near and dear to their heart, and something that they have worked with us for. I mean, Cher's been doing this for 40 years almost, and I think it's almost 38 years that they've been involved in these burials and offering everything to us at their cost. So just free of charge. So it's just an incredible thing. So then in those, after the loss, and maybe we've come to know Cher and we've been a part of a burial, what are the different ways to grieve? I know everybody's journey is different. But I would say asking for help is all I can really think of, and asking for what you need in the process. But what are kind of like the first things that you can do in that early stages of grief to help just kind of process what you're going through?
So one of the things to think about is, what is it like to labor and deliver a child? And if you are on the earlier side of like gestational age, give yourself the same kinds of comforts that you would give to somebody who has their baby at a later stage of pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are at home and you are laboring to deliver your child, your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-week child at home, and that your doctor has said that you don't need to be in a hospital for this loss, your child is small enough that you are safe to deliver at home. If that is the fact, then treat yourself as if the way that a full-term laboring woman would be treated. So give your body nourishment, give your soul nourishment. So take care of yourself as gently as you would take care of a new mother, because that's what you are. You are the mother of a child who is no longer living. But so those are ways that you can kind of care for yourself physically and emotionally during that loss, is to make room for a nurturing experience. So you could do things, for example, like brew teas, and you could have a certain tea that you then associate with your child. So if you have a particular tea that, let's say like a spearmint tea, that you decide to drink through your labor, through that time when you are experiencing the miscarriage, and even if you haven't begun delivering your child yet, you start to nourish yourself. And so then you might have a scent that associates you with your baby. And that becomes a long-term memory. A scent is one of the strongest memory pathways that we have. So scent could be important. Sight, things that are around you are important. Music, if there are particular songs that bring you comfort, you can play those during those early times. And just foods, if you have special family foods that are important to your family, maybe you only eat them at certain times of year, even consider making yourself a meal that includes your family traditions, and have that be a ritualistic way that you are including this baby in all future family meals, that the baby experienced these meals along with me while we were still together. And so making that memory that way. So these are all things that you can do during that time when you are expecting your child to be delivered, no longer living. So those are all things that you can do to prepare for those longer term memories.
Yeah.
And it's similar, for people who are at like later gestational ages when they go into the hospital, and kind of the experience that they would have in the hospital and the things that they can do when they are delivering their child, who either is no longer living in utero or they expect not to live to, through, or long after the delivery. There are similar things that can be done for later gestational age babies.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. One of another mother that went through loss, they have a specific tea time that every time they have tea, it's tea with their baby. So that's part of the daily thing. Whenever we have tea, that's our time with them. So I love that dinner idea. I love the just kind of setting those things up early so that you have them in a way to express that grief, which is your love. Just early on to start that and say, like, those early days of grief, I had already figured out ways to incorporate you in my long-term grief.
Right.
And I would say, how important is it right away to get support, whether it be from a support group that maybe meets in person, or getting one-on-one support from a grief counselor, therapist? How important is that, and when should someone look into getting that type of support?
So grief is a normal reaction in life to loss. So feeling grief does not mean that there's something pathological happening. So we can feel and experience grief, and it's normal and it's expected. And even if it is the most painful thing we have ever felt, that is expected for it to be the most painful thing you've ever felt. So just feeling grief does not mean that there's something wrong with you and that you need to run out and get help. But why you do need help is because you've never been in this situation before. So it's not that there's something you've done this before. And if you've never been in the experience of having lost a baby, early gestation, late gestation, doesn't matter. If you've never done it before, you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know what kinds of things could be helpful to you in your long-term recovery from your grief. So my opinion is that you should have help immediately, that you should immediately be connecting with the people who have experience and who are able to offer you support because they have knowledge and they know what to anticipate and they can offer some guidance. So support groups, wonderful idea. Yeah. Reaching out to lost communities, like there are Facebook groups and things like that, great idea. Doulas in your community who have training in perinatal bereavement, excellent idea. These are people who will actually come to your home and give you guidance, not only on the emotional things that are happening and what you can expect, and give you some education about the experience you're now having, but they can actually advise you on how to handle the physical, the postpartum. They can give you advice on how to handle your labor and your postpartum after having a baby, miscarrying a baby at home. So doulas are professionals.
Huge. Wow.
Yeah, and there's many of them who will offer bereavement doula services free of charge if they are able to do so. A lot of them do.
Wow.
So yeah, reaching out for help isn't about saying that there's something wrong with you because
you don't need to be fixed. No,
not need to be fixed. But if you don't know anything about this experience, having guidance can really help gentle the experience for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely reach out. Share has resources and names that we can offer. We have an online support community, our own group where you could come in and be with other bereaved parents. Some people are there long-term. They have walked that pathway many years ago and they can offer guidance. And then there may be other people who are newer and her walking that path with you at the same time. So yeah, help is really important.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah. And it's not that you need anything fixed or that you're looking to make it go away. You're just looking for support, right? You're looking to be held. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's beautiful. And then as you're kind of working through this grief and you know you want to include your baby in some of these traditions, maybe in other ways, you want to have reminders so that you see them maybe in your home or outside your home or on somewhere on your body, maybe jewelry or just different ways to be able to remember them. Um, One of the recommendations I know we talk about a lot at Share and at our burials, we do give gifts that we hope maybe wouldn't be included in kind of like a memory box. So something simple, like I have one for each of my daughters, and they're just a simple box, something special. I put their name on it. I put the date of their birth, and I've just collected things. I've over the years have gotten birthday cards for them, or I found things that I love that reminded me of them, and just keep it in that box. And then I can always go back and look and remember those special times. Some other ways maybe we can remember is I love the idea of planting flowers or a tree in remembrance of them. I know a lot of bereaved moms that have had trees planted in a park with a plaque in front of it so that they have somewhere to go and visit. They have something that other people are looking at and being able to see their child's name. If it was I had a rose bush at my old house, I could cut the roses and bring them inside. So just beautiful ways to kind of remember. Can you give some more suggestions of maybe other ways that are maybe we haven't thought of that help to remind us in our everyday life?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I want to go back to the memory box real quick because that is a big thing that is done for families in the hospital. And so I wanted to just talk for a minute, if it's okay with you, about the experience of setting up memories in the hospital. So when you go into the hospital and maybe you are expecting that your baby is not going to live, or maybe you have a loss that was unexpected and your baby is stillborn unexpectedly in the hospital, you do psychologically go into a place of shock at that time if it was not expected. But let's assume that you do have the ability to kind of think about what you want this experience to be like. There are things that can be done in the hospital where you have a small window of time that to make memories that can last you a lifetime. One of the things that you can do is photography. You can take pictures of your baby. A lot of people are really scared about seeing a dead baby. I mean, that's not a normal part of our lives, right? Like we're not expecting that. And so there are a lot of people who experience fear around the idea of seeing their baby. And what we have found, there's been a lot of research done and a lot of the major organizations that deal with bereaved parents, they've looked at what are the long-term outcomes of people who choose to see their baby and those who do not choose to see their baby. And what they have found is that people who choose to see their baby and spend time with their baby do seem to have better psychological outcomes. That is not going to be universal. So I don't want to tell every single person that this is what you must do, but give it a go. A lot of times, if you are afraid of seeing your baby, you can ask the hospital staff to wrap your baby up and at like a baby in a little bunting, all snuggled up, and they can tell you what they are seeing. They can tell you your baby looks like a normal newborn. Your baby looks like a normal baby at this stage. Or if your baby does have some sort of anatomical differences, your baby has this happening. And so that way you know what to expect. And it might help to make it a little easier for you to have that experience that so many parents later find is absolutely vital to their healing and to their the peace that they need to find later. So holding your baby and spending time with your baby is the first thing you can do in the hospital to make those memories. Taking photographs is the next step of making those memories. There is, you can take, I mean, everybody's got pictures on their cell phones now. So you can do it yourself. The nursing staff can do it. Or there is an organization called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, who will send professional photographers to your hospital. If they have volunteers in the area, we'll send them to you to take pictures free of charge. If you have photos that you take, those photos can be sent to Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep to have professional photo editors actually treat those photos and make them as beautiful as they can be made so that you can then have them for the future. So Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep will work with digital photos that are taken by other people, or they have tons of volunteer photographers who will come out to the hospital and actually stage beautiful photos for your family. So photographs are another thing that can be done in the hospital.
And one more point about that. You don't have to look at those photographs until you're ready, right? I think that's the beautiful part about them, is that maybe that day you say, I don't think I'm going to be able to hold my baby. I don't think I'm going to be able to see them. I don't want photos. That's where you're at today, right? But maybe getting photographs that you say, I have them. They're on this disc. They're in my box. Someday I might look at them and I'm going to be so grateful when I get to that day when I'm ready and brave enough to do it. But I have them, right? I didn't say no. And if you never look at them, then that's okay too. But you have that one opportunity, and yeah, really encourage you to take advantage of that, regardless of when you choose to look at them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why there is such a focus on memory making around the time of a loss, because it is a limited time opportunity.
Yeah.
It will not come again. And so to make memories in that way. And so there is a lot that the hospitals do offer, a lot of times memory boxes, because they know that parents have told them how important it is to have those items and the experiences of creating those items with their child. So other things that are done in the hospital often, handprints and footprints are often done. There are the baby blankets, any blankets in the hospital that your baby is wrapped in. Their hospital bracelets that they're given. A lot of times those are placed into the memory boxes, hats, little small stuffed animals that are given to your baby as like comfort items are often placed into the memory boxes. So those are a lot of things that the hospital offers, but you also can bring treasures to include with your baby. So if you have a special, let's say a special blanket that great grandma crocheted that every baby in the family has had at a baptism, you can bring that blanket from home and wrap your baby in it. Now your baby is a part of that family tradition. If you have family members that you want to come and to greet your child, having that experience and introducing your baby to the family can be a really important moment. I have seen grandparents meet their grandchild who is no longer living, and it be the most precious moment that they have. And so it can help. Introducing siblings to the baby can be a very important part of their life and of your healing, of knowing that all of your children were together, in this way, and that there was an introduction. The other thing, though, is that, so these are some experiences, right? So we're talking about introducing the family. we're talking about wrapping the baby in a family treasure. Um, these are experiences. So there are other kinds of experiences that you as a bereaved parent won't have another opportunity to do. So depending on the fragility of your baby's body, you can bathe your child. The nurses can help you bathe your baby, and you can give your baby their first bath. You can dress your baby in a special outfit that you want them to wear in the hospital. If you'd like, you could change that outfit, and you can take that one home with you and put it in a memory box. And then maybe you can dress your child in another outfit that is for their burial. And so you can, send them with a special blessed piece of clothing. You can also do things like read to your baby. Is there a special book that you've read to all your other children, or that you wanted to read to this baby? Do you have a little book on the bookshelf at home? Now, I will say, please do not choose something like I will love you forever, or something that's like a real tearjerker. Maybe choose something that is a little more neutral, and that's just a really lovely, book for a baby, a little board book or something. If you have children in the future, it's a really special moment to read that same book to your later subsequent children, and to know that this is a story that I read to all of my children. Same thing with songs. If there are special lullabies, that your family enjoys. I know that in my family, the ants go marching is a big one. All of the babies have that sung to them as their bottoms are patted, So if you have a special song in your family that you want to sing to your baby, sing to your baby. This hospital, post-loss parenting is a huge place where it can be a memory for you, and also a foundation for healing in the future, that you did what you could do at that time. Now, if you are not able to do these things because of the nature of your baby's issues, because of your own psychological state at that time, that is okay. That is okay. I would say it again, it is okay, because you have to take care of you in that moment. And there are things you can do later. So if there are things that don't happen around the time of your baby's death that you later wish had happened, regrets are normal and understandable, but the opportunity to remember is not lost. So Rachel, you were talking about things like planting flowers. Planting flowers is a huge thing. A lot of people love to do that, especially because you can plant things that come up again every year. And so that can be a cyclical reminder, or even you could plant flowers that bloom around the time of your baby's birth, right? So that it's a thing that reminds you. I know when I lost my older son, Andrew, he was buried in a family cemetery that is near Erie, Pennsylvania. And so we don't live local to that, his burial site. He is buried next to his grandpa, though, which is something that we appreciate. But what we did is we took tulip bulbs and we planted them on his grave, and then we planted the same tulips in our home. So every year that those tulips came up, we knew that they were also blooming on his grave, and that was a connection for us, and it was a reminder, and it was something that allowed us to remember. And then I also did take flower petals from those tulips, dried them, and I made art with them later, so that I have that as well as an ongoing reminder of my son. There are other things that can be done as memorials as well. So one thing that is also time limited is the opportunity to make breast milk jewelry or breast milk objects. So any person who has their baby after about the 5th month of gestation will have milk production. And a lot of times people don't even know that that's going to happen to them after they have a baby, that early in their pregnancy. But you can take that breast milk, and there's several things you could do with it. You could donate it to a NICU, and that's something that if you felt like you wanted to pump and donate, that NICUs would love to have breast milk for that gestational age. Also, there are crafters on Etsy who will take your breast milk and will turn it into some sort of like polymer using chemicals, and will make breast milk jewelry for it. Wow. So there are some parents that feel very comforted by wearing a pendant that's a heart, a white heart, and it is made out of the breast milk that their body made for their child. Yeah. Or sometimes they make little pearls and put them into like little caged pendants, bracelets, necklace, like look like pearl necklaces can be made depending on how much breast milk can be provided. So that's something that is another time limited option. But then there are, like we said, the planting of trees or flowers. We can actually participate with Share. Share has things that we do all throughout the year that are available to be a part of community and to remember your baby, especially in October. October is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Month. And there is on October 15th, there's the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. And so there are events. Share has a walk every year. On the 15th, there is what's called the Wave of Light, which is a candle lighting all throughout the world. People, you can imagine this wave of light like spreading all the way over the world as people remember their babies that they've lost. There are other things, maybe a little less known or conventional, such as if your baby is old enough in gestation and your baby's body is large enough, you may have the option to have your baby cremated. And in that case, you can take the ashes and you could do several things with them. You had said, Rachel, about rocks, I believe, that there's a company who will create rocks from ashes.
Yeah, so, again, at Schneider's Funeral Home. So yeah.
There are also companies who take those ashes and you can put them into like a small glass statue, and the ashes actually appear as like glitter, like a glitter swirl inside of the object. I've seen families take their ashes and turn them into tattoo ink, and have actually had a memorial tattoo created for their baby, which you can do with or without ashes. So tattooing is another thing that can be done as a memory. One of the other things that you might do as a way to remember your baby is just to continue incorporating your baby into family events and, family things that happen throughout the year. So for example, if we think about the ways that anniversaries and holidays impact families who have lost babies. When you have an anniversary that is coming up, whether it's the anniversary of the ultrasound that you had where you found out that things were not as you had hoped, or the anniversary of the day that you found out that your baby was no longer living, the anniversary of your baby's birthday is an anniversary. Your original due date is an anniversary. So anytime around those dates, you can plan something special. And it doesn't have to be like an entire day, but maybe you sit down in the morning by yourself with that tea that you drank during your labor, with that, scent that you remember, that you associate with your baby, and you just have a moment of mindfulness on those days. Spending time like that is what we call ritual reminders. It's where we do something that is specific in order to remember our child. So you can do rituals. You can also do things like, if you have family pictures taken, select an object that symbolizes your child and include that object in every family photo. It's a way for you to, I have two small stones. One says love, the other says always. Whenever we have a family photo taken, my children, someone in the photo is holding those stones. And so it's a small way for us to include the family members who are no longer with us.
Yeah.
So those are some options. Do you have other things that you were thinking?
Yeah. I think finding a symbol has been really big in my loss journey. My daughter Audrey had Turner syndrome, so their symbol for Turner syndrome is a butterfly. It's purple. And when I had that symbolic attachment with her in that way, anytime I see butterflies, I felt like they were just surrounding my home. I see jewelry. I wear butterfly jewelry all the time. She was named after Audrey Hepburn, so anything Audrey Hepburn is like an immediate go-to, and it's kind of just like a hello from her, and then something that I don't get the opportunity to buy her things, right? But I get to buy myself things to have in my home as things to remind myself of her. So jewelry is a big one. Anything symbol wise is a big one. And one we don't think about is simply naming our baby. I feel like that's something we kind of get robbed of if we don't get to find out the gender. We're so, well, if you don't know the gender, you can't name your baby, or I can name them a neutral name, and there's no rules. My second loss was a vanishing twin. So we didn't never get to know if it was a boy or a girl. And 4 years later, I just said, you know what, I'm going to look for signs that will help me know what to name my child. I have this name and this name. Whatever signs point me in the direction of where to go with this. And now I can think of both of my daughters with names and think of them together and visualize that. So just naming them, giving yourself, you can do that. It doesn't matter if your loss was at 4 weeks. It doesn't matter how early that is. You get that. That's your choice. And my last one that I've loved to do is make donations in their name. I feel like the best way to honor them is to be able to give back. So if it be with Share or other organizations or to other lost parents, just always including them as the ones doing all the good work. Because without them and what they've done to my heart, I don't think I would be the same person, and the way that I want to give back, it wouldn't be the same way. So because of them, I want to give back, and I use them to be the ones to offer that to others. And just a way to be able to include their name in one other way. So yeah, those are a couple other ones that.
Yeah, absolutely. When I had my first loss, I knew absolutely nothing about pregnancy, nothing about pregnancy loss. I knew nothing. It was all brand new. And I lost my baby and never named my baby until after my second loss. I always referred to Callan as the first one we lost, the first one. And that's what, when my husband and I would talk, that's what I would say is the first one. Well, after I lost Andrew, my second loss, my second pregnancy, I was reading a book on loss, and they said that you can name your baby. And it was like a revelation to me that was even a possibility. And so I didn't know if Callan was a girl or a boy. I decided to go with a neutral name, and I actually chose the name Callan because it is from a Celtic word that means first. And so since that was the name that was the first baby, the first one. And so Callan keeps their place in our family. They are our first. And, my kids always joke and say, someday you'll get to heaven and know if you had a girl or a boy. And, it's a fun thought that there's still that gender reveal.
In heaven. Well, I always laugh too, because the one, it was either Colette or Martin, and we lived in another area, and we've recently moved back to Lancaster Lidditz. And I got so many signs where I used to live that it was Colette. I was like, if I lived here, every truck, every business is Martin. I was like, I would have Martin today if I lived here.
Right.
I said, so
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
funny how sometimes our signs are, and our journey is specific in that time. But I always say that, like, yeah, just the timing, how it all worked out. But yeah, well, thank you so much. I think these are just beautiful ways to kind of take a mother through the process of going through that loss, and then how to grieve it, and then how to continue on living and remembering and loving that child. So yeah, I thank you so much for all of your wonderful advice. And if you guys haven't heard, we do have an event coming up on the 25th. We do have information on our website and on our Facebook page, but this is our 40th anniversary Founders Gala, and the founders who started this all and have given us 40 years of this, and Snyder's Funeral Home, who's been doing this with us for so long. A night to remember them, honor them, and all the good work we've done and will continue to do. And we really hope that you can be there with us. It should be a fun night. We'd love to have you there. So we look forward to sharing another video with you next month. But in the meantime, if you have anything you'd like to share with us, please feel free. If you want to contact us, please feel free to reach out and email us any of your questions, anything we can do to help better support and love you. Thank you so much.